To give some explanation and background knowledge for this whole encounter, I was around 15 at the time this occurred. I was camping out in the middle of nowhere with my family and part of my extended family, my aunt, uncle and cousins. I was the oldest kid there in the RV, so you can probably understand how it felt to have no one else to do the stupid crap I did back then with. With a good 2-year gap between me and the inferiors, it was almost like nirvana when I got to the campground and met the other teenagers. These were all people we knew fairly well from previous camping trips, so it was considered normal to hit it off with them from the start and act like we known each other forever within the hour. Now, the story. My parents trusted me a lot. Not a lie. I liked my fun, but I liked getting home in time for dinner equally as much. So, when I was gone most of the day with other people from the camp, they didn't think much of it. The only rule was that I had to be back at the RV to eat dinner and before 8:30 in the evening. So picture this, a group of 6 teenagers, 15 and 16, out in the middle of the woods with no adult supervision for the vast majority of the day. Just a recipe for success right there. But this particular day, we found a neat little deer trail we hadn't found in the 2 years we'd been there before. On second thought though, it didn't really seem like a deer trail. It snaked through a really thick part of the underbrush, maybe a foot of clear ground, and 3.5 feet clear of branches going upwards. It's a really hard thing to pick out of the brush, unless you're either really looking or you know where it is. It was promptly explored, marked with a broken branch outside the entrance, and quickly forgotten. Except, I remembered this special little tunnel. That night, while we were all eating dinner, one of the adults proposed that we played manhunt out in the woods, at night. Not everyone was totally on board with this idea, but in the grand scheme of the plan, they were quashed down like autumn leaves. Everyone got a flashlight, and everyone was assigned to a team. For those of you who aren't sure what manhunt is, here's an explanation. Everyone playing is given a flashlight, and they are divided into 2 groups. It's basically like glorified flashlight tag, but there's a catch. As you catch people, you have to correctly identify who they are, and if you can, they join forces with the hunters. The last man standing gets a candy bar or something, whatever is being offered for a prize. This is how we played it anyways. For the first round, I get lumped in with the runners, those who are getting chased by the hunters. We get a 5-minute head start to run, climb a tree, whatever the hell we want to do to evade the hunters. Usually, I'm the one up in the tree, but that never really worked out as being the winning spot. So, I try and score a win for once. I decided to play the cat and use one of the surefire methods of escape. And the hiding spot was the rude little path through the thicket. It took most of the head start to find the damn thing, because it was so well hidden and out of the way. As I passed hiding spots, I heard hushed, smothered whispering between the siblings who were questioning my actions, like a bird's wings rustling when fluffing itself. It should be noted that I have bat hearing. My ears are probably my greatest asset in this game. But when I'm just reaching the destination, I hear the short blast of the air horn announcing that the 5 minutes are up. I swan dove into this minute little path in the undergrowth, shuffling my hands and knees until I'm about halfway in, crouching down like some huge, malformed quail. The hunters are doing an initial sweep through the trails, looking for obvious hiders and people caught out trying to change spots. When they finally reach me, they reach the dead end and go straight back. I try to readjust myself and crawl further down into the tunnel. I honestly don't know how it happened, but I found an even more hidden path within that one, and accidentally, I dragged my stupid body down the rabbit hole. Except, Instead of ending in a dead end, this one ended in a slight hollow. I don't ever want to describe exactly what I found there. I'm sorry, but I just can't. It was a younger looking woman, naked, covered in lacerations and stab wounds in a fetal position. Her glassy, glazed eyes seemed to look straight through me. I won't go any further than that. I was too scared to scream, and I froze there while dark, burgundy stains formed on my jeans. I froze there, in a pseudo-catatonic position like a marble carving for what felt like hours. And then, I heard someone else coming along the path. Have you ever been so scared that, for a moment, one insane moment, you truly consider something incredibly stupid as a viable option to escape? That was one of those times. I let out a short, trembling whisper and started moving. Whoever was on the path stopped, and then eagerly started moving forward again. I could hear their panting, uneven breaths of a man, a horrible marker of whoever it was getting closer and closer to me by the second. By some wondrous, beautiful miracle, he missed the path leading to the brushy hollow. I heard him moving down past the entrance, dragging something clunky and awkward behind him. I heard clinking noises, and the occasional effort to silence the small, sharp noise. I heard a low curse, somewhere towards the end of the tunnel, and I blasted out of the undergrowth like a bullet forcing its way out of a barrel. Cracks, crashes, and obnoxious rustling was all around me as I heard the man sharply intake a breath and began to move towards me. The hoarse, deep panting was getting closer and closer to me, a testament to how I was too slow at exiting. Somehow, I exploded out of the entrance, got onto my wobbly, half-asleep legs, and started bucking it down the trail. The unknown pursuer was close behind me for a bit, but it seemed like he was too exhausted to chase me at the same speed for long. I know everyone loves to rip on the fact that people always trip in horror movies, but in all honesty, tripping is something I'm amazed I didn't do. With adrenaline coursing through me at the speed of Usain Bolt, trying to make my jello-like, unsteady walking appendages work to move me away from whoever was behind me was like trying to run on water. It felt like an eternity, but I finally reached the main trail, running back to the camp, and sprinted down it, screaming bloody murder. Confused faces looked out from the trees, and I think someone called after me. Reaching the camp was easy, but trying to explain why I woke up half the people in the camp and bolted out of the woods at breakneck speed was harder. When I finally choked the words out to explain, I remember a profound, insidious silence throughout the group of adults waiting at the mouth of the trail. I really don't remember a whole lot from that point on. I know the cops are called, and my mother and aunt ran shrieking and wailing along the trail, calling for the other kids to come back to safety. When someone yells like that, you don't ignore it. They rounded everyone up in 30 seconds flat and barreled back to the camp. The police found the man in the woods, creeping along the trail, clutching a knife. A black garbage bag with a plethora of sharp instruments and a saw was found abandoned on the trail, some speckled and smeared with dried blood. I don't think there's really any getting over it. I still have nightmares sometimes, of the man chasing me, breathing heavily down the back of my neck, trying to catch me. Sometimes, he succeeds. This happened a couple years ago when I was backpacking in Australia. I travelled around driving a van, like many backpackers there do, as it saves a lot of money with accommodation. Usually I slept in rest areas, gas stations or wherever I could park. This one night, I've been driving for a few hours and start to feel sleepy. I decided then to stop in the next rest area in the middle of nowhere. Parking in that location during daytime could have been a great idea, but at night, it seemed like a horror movie location. There were no cars parked there. I know I should park where there were more people around, but I really was drowsy, and no lights whatsoever. I turned off the engine and closed the curtains of the van. It was not long before dawn that I heard some heavy knocking on the side of the van. "Open up, it's the police!" Nothing wakes you up faster than that. My heart was racing. I was just adjusting to the adrenaline rush in my stream when they repeated the heavy knocking, saying it was the police. My first thought is that I parked somewhere I shouldn't, but then again, it was the middle of nowhere and it was a rest area. Before opening up, with my mind telling me that that situation was weird as hell, I decided to go slowly to one of the windows and look through the gap in one of the curtains. I could clearly see the shape/shadow of a guy standing behind the van. His car wasn't too far, but it didn't have any lights or flashing lights. This guy was definitely not a cop. Bringing up the courage I had left, I shouted, "Get the hell away! I have a gun and I'm calling the cops on the radio!" I didn't have a radio, or a gun, but that seemed to faze him. I saw him getting back in his car, and, to add the creepiness, someone came out of the bushes and also got in the car. They left, and a few minutes after that, I turned on my van and drove in the opposite direction they went to. Safe to say that I never slept in another rest area that didn't have at least a couple other cars parked. I don't know what those people wanted, but with Australia's history of backpackers serial killers, I'm very happy to be here today. It was 6 years ago. I would have been about 16 or 17 at the time, and I was suffering from a bout of insomnia. Being that I couldn't sleep, I decided to go out for a walk. Maybe get a drink at the gas station and watch the sunrise in a few hours. I left my house and headed for the farther shop to buy myself some thinking time and get more exercise. I was lost in thought for a good 10 minutes or so, judging as I was about halfway to the store, when I noticed a red SUV driving up the street really slowly. It was still a way down the road, but I was always paranoid and ducked behind the car closest to me. After what felt like 10 minutes, I'm not so sure, the car passed. I could see tire shadow from underneath the car, so it must have been driving on the wrong side, which really freaked me out. It passed, turned the corner slowly, and I waited. A little while later, I emerged from next to the car and began briskly walking toward the gas station. I told myself that maybe it was a cop or someone looking for a lost pet, and forced myself to relax. I was out here to think and enjoy the cool night air. I might as well. I made it to the gas station, got a Pepsi, and headed back. To be honest, I had already laughed off the SUV as maybe some drunk fool. I made it a few streets past the initial spot and got a weird feeling, so I stopped and peered around the streets. At the very end of my sight, I could see headlights coming from the direction of the gas station. I felt a horrible unease and decided it would be best to hide by another car. It was the SUV, driving so unbearably slow again. I literally climbed under the car I was by as I saw it coming. It passed by at what could not have been more than 10 miles per hour. I felt like crying as this was by no means normal. As the car rounded another corner, I took off from my hiding spot, down a road, heading opposite to the way they went. I ran into a woman standing by her garbage cans, smoking. I quickly explained what had happened and pointed the way I came. Just then, the SUV turned down the street and the lady and I quickly ran behind her car. I peeked as it drove by. There were garbage bags taped to most of the windows. I noticed a bat, or at least what I thought it was. The man inside had a 5 o'clock shadow and a thicker mustache. That's all I could see. I don't know what would have happened, but creepy SUV guy, garbage man as I call you, let's not meet. A few years back, my girlfriend and I, having hiked several other parts of the Alpacan Trail, decided we wanted to give the southern portion of Virginia's trail a shot. It is about 166 miles long and runs through George Washington and Jefferson National Forests from Roanoke County to Berrysburg in Giles County. This is definitely one of the more remote and less traveled parts of the trail, which is exactly what we were looking for. We gathered our gear and made our way to the start of the Virginia Creeper Trail to begin our journey. We had planned our journey to end at Damascus and figured that by the time we got there, we would be more than ready to get home to our own beds. It was early October and the changing of leaves and colours were amazing. The air was crisp and cool. Perfect hiking weather with beautiful scenery. The majority of the trip was pretty uneventful, just your typical hike. But our last couple of nights is where things got weird. On this portion of the trail, you are supposed to camp on the trail or designated shelter. We didn't really want to run into other people and didn't want anyone coming up on us in the middle of the night. We decided to ignore those suggestions and find our own little spot off the trail. A little searching around, and we found a spot a little ways off the trail in the middle of a small clearing. It was perfect. We set up camp, cooked some food, talked for a little while, then snuggled up and went to sleep for the night. Somewhere around 2 a.m, I was awoke by my girlfriend, shaking me awake, telling me, "Get your gun! Someone is outside walking around our tent." She informed me that she woke up to what sounded like someone right outside the tent, running a knife or something along the side while circling us. While hiking, I carry a 1911 and a judge with me. You never know exactly who or what you might run into when on such a long hike in a remote location. I got the judge out my pack, and then we sat, silently listening for any sounds. A few minutes of nothing, but the breeze blowing through the trees. And then, I heard it. Snap, crunch, snap. Someone or something walking in the woods behind our tent. I got the flashlight and silently made my way out of the tent. Our fire had went out, so it was nearly pitch black, illuminated by only the dim glow of the October moon. I told my girlfriend to stay put while I check it out. I didn't flick the flashlight on right away, so as to not give away that I was out of the tent and have it become a shining beacon of my location. Instead, I waited to hear more noises. After a few minutes, snap, crunch, snap. It sounded like it was bipedal, based on the way the steps were paced. I turned on the flashlight and flooded the area in light. I thought I saw someone move behind a tree. I yelled out and told them to go away and that I was armed. I kept the light on the area with my gun drawn and slowly approached towards the area where I thought I saw the figure. Then, from my rear, I hear what sounds like someone running away through the woods. I spin and face my light that way, and then from the original spot, hear who or whatever was there take off into the woods. There is no way I'm giving chase, so I return to the campsite. I tell my girlfriend about what happened, and I end up sitting guard outside the tent in the darkness until daybreak. In the morning, I looked around a bit for signs of who or whatever it was, and I discovered a boot print in some moist dirt not far off our tent. It wasn't mine, and it wasn't my girl's. This freaked me out as it confirmed that someone, perhaps more than one, was skulking around our tent in the dark. I kept it to myself because I didn't want to freak my girl out any more than she already was. At this point, we were pretty deep in and still had 2 days left. That day, we walked a little faster than normal and covered as much ground as possible. When it came to set up camp, I found a spot near a cliff where we could place the tent in a small overhang and prevent anyone from coming up behind us. The whole day up to this point, I had a feeling we were being followed. I had no confirmation of this, as I hadn't seen or heard anyone else, but it was just a gut feeling. We set up camp and made some food, then retreated to the tent. I gave my girl the 1911 and kept the judge right next to me, and I assured her that if I sleep at all, it would be with one eye open. After a while, she drifted off to sleep, and I stayed awake, listening to the sounds of the woods at night. I was awake for a few hours. I just waited to see if anything was going to happen. At some point, I guess my exhaustion caught up with me and I drifted off. I woke sometime later to what sounded like someone going through our stuff outside the tent. I grabbed my gun and woke my girlfriend, shushing her to be quiet. From the faint glow of the fire, I could see someone's silhouette against the tent. There was really someone out there. I yelled out to them, something along the lines of, "We are armed, get the hell out of here!" They dropped what they were doing and bolted. I came out of the tent, gun drawn and ready to shoot someone. Our stuff was strewn all about. They had rummaged through quite a bit of our stuff. I walked to the edge of the woods in the direction whoever was out there had fled. There was a creek nearby and I walked to the edge, where there was a small trail running alongside it. Down the creek, I could see a light. It looked like a lantern, the way it flickered. Then, I saw 3 more emerge from the other side of the woods. I told my girlfriend to start packing up whatever she could, and that we were leaving, now. We packed up everything of value, left the tent and a few other items, and headed back onto the trail in the middle of the night. I kept hearing people talking off in the woods and hearing branches snap for quite some ways. I kept looking behind us every few seconds to make sure nobody was coming up on us. It was completely nerve-wracking. If something happened, we were still a long ways from anywhere and quite literally on our own, since we hadn't seen another hiker the entire time we'd been out there. I really felt we were in serious danger. We had been walking for quite some time when I heard something in the woods behind us. As we rounded a corner, I turned around and saw someone step out onto the trail and just stand there, watching us. It was just as the sun was coming up, and barely any light. I couldn't make out any features, just the silhouette. I stopped and looked at them for a second and asked them who they were and what they wanted. They just stood there, silently, watching us, and then turned and walked back into the woods. We picked up the pace and kept going, looking back every so often. We didn't see them again, but my gut told me they were still there for quite a ways. We eventually reached the end of the trail and got to where we had parked my girlfriend's car, extremely exhausted. We made it out of the Virginia woods without becoming a meal for a clan of cannibalistic inbred hillbillies, which is what I pictured happening in my head the whole time. I have no idea who they were or what they wanted. Maybe it was just someone messing with us. Maybe it really was a clan of deformed hillbillies who are hunting us. I will never know, because I will not be returning to find out.